games. MLB playoffs are going on. Yes, still watching without the Baltimore Orioles as well. Phillies eliminate the Mets. I'm sorry, the Mets rather eliminate the Phillies. Easy for me to say. 3-1. Boy, those were teams were really similar. I thought good pitching on both sides, good energy. I think the Phillies, they had never met in the playoffs. That was wild, like, considering like all these years the play. It's not as crazy as it sounds. That in and of itself before this, because they used to up until the 90s, really, they were in the same division forever. So you only had two teams play each other in the same. It would have been impossible for them in the same division to play each other. But even since then, that's a long time where they never played each other in the playoffs. So a bit of a surprise. But I think Mets eliminate the Phillies. The Mets offense, I think, was just too much. Got the Phillies pitching, which didn't do well out here in this series. I thought the Phillies pitching, which has been so good all year long, really got hammered by the Mets bats in this one. This series is super exciting. The Dodgers and the Padres is this one. They're tied at 2-2. The Dodgers, I think they're the establishment team. Freddie Freeman didn't play in the last game. They didn't need it. Betts, I thought, really chucked one early, set the tone, hit the ball over the fence in the first inning. Bullpen game, they knocked out Dylan Cease early. I do think the Padres this is a big tell for them. I don't know next time. We're going to know, obviously, who's going to be in the ALCS. Whoever they face, they're going to be facing the Mets. But big for them. Got to get over this hump with the Padres, with the Dodgers as well there. Dodgers just don't play well in the postseason enough as well. But I would say their bats have come alive in the last game, and they're doing very well in this one, Game 5. Yankees over the Royals 2-1. No surprise here. I think the Yankees have a better team than the Royals do. I think outside of their first two pitchers, I think that's a big drop off of the Yankees' bats. Are just, to me, more solid from top to bottom than the Royals are, more postseason experience than they have. So that doesn't surprise me a lot as well. Still early in this one. Tigers over the Guardians. I don't want to see Tarek Subban like anywhere. I kind of thought this would go this way, where the Tigers would win. We're still in the middle of this series, but it didn't shock me that that's the way it was going to go, because the Tigers really, that's a big thing. Like when you have a guy with that's this far ahead of everybody, a Cy Young candidate. That's the thing. And the Guardians don't have a lot of offense. They don't. They were better, I think, are good at times, but it doesn't shock me that those bats went silent against the Terry Super. It doesn't. So we will see what happens with next week. Obviously, we will be in the ALCS, the NLCS, on our way to the World Series. See who wins the World Series. Not be the Orioles, unfortunately. Since you brought up the Orioles, let's talk Orioles free agency. So now we're into Orioles off-season content. So we're going to talk a little Orioles 24-25. Obviously, we're in 2024. We're going to finish out 2024. We got a few more months. We're here in October. We're going to go into 2025, the next season. So I just phrase it that way, 2024-25 free agency. This off-season. Now, it hasn't started yet technically till after the World Series. So while the World Series is going on, Orioles are eliminated. They can kind of get all of their ducks in a row and see what's going on. They have had some executive changes, business executive changes. Greg Bader, some of those guys are gone now as well. The Rubenstein family is now integrating themselves into all the executive spots, etc. as well. Mike Elias, obviously, and on the field, the baseball operations is staying on. Mike Elias and Brandon Hyde have been retained for next year. So that part of it is stabilized as well. So now this is the David Rubenstein era of the team as far as free agency. That matters a lot. With the Angelos family, it really wasn't any drama here in free agents, right? There was no chance of anything happening, right? If a guy was making, I even see it now with the guys they already have, like the Zach Eflin trade, probably wouldn't happen under the Angelos family. Having Corbin Burns here probably wouldn't happen under the Angelos family. Anthony even like Anthony Santander, everybody kind of went past that when he made like 15, 16. They probably would have let him go or traded him off already because of the lack of resources. The Orioles had a severe lack of resources. That's all with now. So the Rubenstein family is here. David Rubenstein is here. His ownership team is here. Lots of billionaires, lots of money to go around to have at least immediate resources for them. Now, that said, that's not always the end-all, be-all in a lot of these cases as we start to go over these free agents. Now that you have resources, do you have enough to actually go ahead and get some of these free agents on this list? Be interesting to see how this goes. Now, baseball is a little different than football, a little later. So guys really don't have any really room to do anything for the first 6 years. They're kind of stuck with the team. So you have the first 6 years, the last 3 of the 6, you have arbitration. So I mentioned that here. So here's the first list of arbitration. You have arbitration, these guys, first time going through arbitration, second time guys going through arbitration, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like football parable, restricted free agency over and over, right? So they're basically, you get a raise, you get to, slot a little more with the team based on performance, but like you're not a real free agent until you actually get all the way through. There actually are some guys too with club options, so we'll talk about that as well. All right, how time flies. Adley getting his first year with arbitration. So 2028 is the year he's a complete free agent. He's going through arbitration for the first time. So is Dean Kramer. So is Emmanuel Rivera. So is Tyler Wells. Definitely, I don't think there's going to be a lot of drama here. A lot of these guys will be back. Interesting to see now, and I mentioned the resources, to see if Adley can get an extension. See if the Orioles can extend an Adley Rutschman and get that signed and taken care of. Dean Kramer, I think it's just he's going to go ahead and get the arbitration for a year. Probably same with Emmanuel Rivera. He'll be there. Tyler Wells, I'd assume they bring him back. I don't think there's a lot of drama here with these guys. They're all going to accept arbitration. The one thing is, can they get a long-term deal done with Adley Rutschman? Second year arbitration, 2027. One is kind of strange, I think. Colonel Perez is kind of strange. But Mountie, some people are talking about moving on from Mountie. Mountie's had some injuries the last couple of years. This is going to be more expensive now. His second year of arbitration, 2027. Interesting to see. He's going to be a free agent then. Interesting to see what happens with Mountie in the offseason. I'm thinking it's somewhat possible they want Kobe Mayo there. I don't know that yet, but I think that's possible. I more think that he'll just sign the arbitration and they'll all move on because it's not that expensive. But interesting to see what happens with him. Ramon Urias, same. I don't think they do anything. Kind of seeing what they've done, they kind of don't. I don't expect them to move on from Urias. I think he'll sign the arbitration and they'll bring him back. Jacob Webb, I think, is probably I thought was their best reliever over the course of the season. Keegan Aiken, I thought, had his best season as a pro. Trevor Rogers was terrible. Terrible. He wasn't good in Tampa. He kind of was in Miami, rather. He was kind of turning things around. Bad. I didn't understand that trade. I just didn't understand that trade. Was sent down. I think he'll be given every chance to go ahead and probably be in the bullpen at the start of the season next season and be on the roster. Claudio Perez is interesting. He actually has a club option for next year, even though his arbitration is so far away. Um, they should take it. It's not a lot of money. I think it's interesting. I do think there is some possibility that they move on from him with that fact. I hope not, but bit inconsistent. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. 2026 for a third year arbitration. Cedric Mullins, Jorge Mateo, Greg Soto, the pitcher. I don't think there's any drama here. I think all of them signed back with arbitration. Mateo is interesting to see, would be the most interesting one here to see if he can play next year. Had an injury. Let's see how healthy he is for 2026. I think Mullins kind of played his way back into a starting role, I think, at the last month. Soto, I think, is one of those Philly pitchers to be fighting for a bullpen spot. So I definitely think they'll go ahead and pick that up. These are free agents. So these are guys that are not arbitration. They're all ready to go with free agency. Some have a club option. Let's start with Austin Slater. I don't think they bring him back. I don't think they bring him back. I think he's gonna find a new team. I don't think they're gonna try hard to keep him. I think he's a serviceable backup outfielder for somebody. Eloy Jimenez, they're not going to pick this up. His is actually rather expensive. I think it's like $18 million or something. They sent him to AAA. I don't think there's a role for him on this club. I think he's they need a pinch hitter. Like if you're not picking up that's a segue right into the next guy, Ryan O'Hearn. If you don't pick up Ryan O'Hearn, that's an interesting one. Maybe there's a spot for Jimenez. I could see that, but Jimenez really doesn't do anything except DH from one side of the plate. So I don't know how big of a role, how much you want to spend on it. Certainly, there's no chance that they pick up this club option. I think there's certainly no chance. I think that O'Hearn, I think, is fascinating. I think a lot of people don't think he's going to stay. I'm not convinced. I think Brandon Hyde really likes him. I do think I kind of get the vibes that he's a Brandon Hyde guy. So I do think they're going to re-sign him as well. Colombe's like 34. He has a club option. They're picking that up. I don't think there's any question about it. Unless he's his injuries. He did have some injuries this year, but unless it's to the point where he can't play, I don't think he stays with the club. I do think rather he stays with the club. Sir Anthony Dominguez. Y'all like him more than I do. I think he is a middle reliever that is. There is a club option here as well. So this is like that factors in. It's like $8 million. I do think y'all like him more than I like him. I think Philly got rid of him for a reason. He kind of gives me the Colano Perez vibes. I don't think there's that much difference between him and Perez. Throws hard, flamethrower, got the makeup of a closer, but just not as consistent as a closer needs to be. His ERAs is over 3 every year of his career, except one. I think it was 2019. I wouldn't pick it up, but I'm thinking they're going to. I don't think I'd give him $8 million, especially if I know. I would maybe if I had no Felix Bautista coming back. But Felix Bautista is definitely coming back this year. So I don't, but I think they're going to pick it up. But interesting to see that. James McCann, the backup catcher. I have no idea. I think I'm kind of thinking he's in the Ryan O'Hearn category in terms of the team liking him. I think like this is not a bad choice for a second string catcher. I think this is not not to rely, he could play. You're not worried about his defense. You're not worried about much here. Playing him on Sunday as a catcher. I don't know though how much he's valued by the rest of the league as a backup catcher. I gotta think another team would be interested in him. And how much do you want to spend on that? That's the thing. If we are talking about extension for Adley, then how much you want to spend on James McCann? Do you want to just give it to a Samuel Basallo or something like that? interesting to see what happens with McCann. I'm really not sure. I would say I would say if I have to say 51%, he's probably not an Oriole. But I don't know. It's close. John Means, I think he returns for no money. I think they're going to give him one more shot. I don't think he's going to have much value around the league. I think the Orioles do value him. I think it's over for Means, though. I don't. He just can't stay healthy. He can't stay healthy. He's a good pitcher. I think he's a solid pitcher. I just don't think he's healthy enough to be a major league pitcher on a consistent basis. I'm not even sure. I mean, I'm not even convinced he comes back at the beginning of next year, early. I mean, we've seen that movie before. So I think, though, they'll give it a shot. I don't think it'll be expensive, $1 or $2 million. I think Batista, I think they're going to give him $1 million next year. I can see a deal like that for me, like a $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million, where they try it again. All right, now what we've been waiting for, Anthony Santander. I'm pretty sure he's gone. With Heston Kjerstad coming up in the outfield and right field, I think that's definitely part of why. I think some of the numbers, I think some people are saying is 16-7. It's a pretty good chance he could get $20 million. I don't think the Orioles spend that kind of money on Santander. It's not unheard. I don't know that he's going to get $20 million, but it's tough to tell. I mean, he had 44 home runs. The sabermetric guys wouldn't like him because of his low average, but that's a lot of production. Look, I look at teams like Seattle, Minnesota, San Francisco. They all could use a guy like this. So I think there's a need for what he does. I'd be pretty surprised if he goes under the radar. I've heard a lot in the comments to somebody mentioned a similarity to Nelson Cruz. You might want to resign Nelson Cruz. Nelson Cruz was pretty good after he left Baltimore. I could absolutely see him having a 4 or 5 year run like that as a DH or in right field. I absolutely could see it with Santander. He could play a little first base too. I don't think I do think, though, it's some chance he stays. He may want to stay, and they may want him to stay. That might factor in here. He's been with the Orioles pretty much his entire pro career. So I think that would factor in if both parties want to do a deal. I think he's our longest tenured player at this point, Santander. So interesting to see how this goes. And the number one free agent on our team and the number one free agent, I think, in all of baseball is Corbin Burns. Certainly is a pitcher. You could argue either him or Juan Soto. I think it's very little chance we sign Corbin Burns. You have the resources, I think, to bid. I think they'll give it a shot. I don't believe it's going to be uber expensive. And even if you pay it, I'm not sure he wants to stay here. And I don't think necessarily he dislikes it. I've heard some people mention he didn't get along with Hyde. He had the little dust up there, I don't know if it's that. I just think he's going to have a lot of options. A lot of options. The Brewers couldn't sign him. I think he's going to be just super hard to sign. So I definitely think he signs elsewhere going forward. So it'll be interesting to see. I do think they go. I think you got about 5-8%. They are going to make an offer. I don't think they're just going to not make an offer at all. I do think they're going to give it some effort, but it's going to be very, very difficult to sign a guy this good. He's better than anybody who was available last year. Some of those guys got 25, 30 million. Thank you for joining us on the Raven Sports Podcast. We will see you after the game on Sunday. You have a great day.